in some weird ways, talent can be a curse because it makes people lazy.
Thank you so much for sitting down. I feel like it's not often a lot of people get to sit down and talk to the CEO of prop firms. You know what I'm saying? A lot of firms don't even show their CEO. So it's very cool to, like, once again, get to meet you, sit down. I've been seeing a ton of your content lately and what TopTier has been doing. So like I said, I wanted to, while I was here in Miami, sit down with you, kind of go over TopTier, yourself, how you got in the position and what kind of you guys have going. So first off, I kind of want to just give a brief introduction of who you are and kind of, how you got a part of TopTier.
Yeah, so I was a computer science geek in college, but I always knew my dad had started a software company in his late 20s that eventually IPO'd, and I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I went back to business school, got my MBA, and then I've been a serial entrepreneur, since dating myself, but since the mid-90s.
Okay.
So,
That's super fun. What college did you go to?
undergrad, I went to Brown University, and then for business school, I went to Wharton.
Okay, that's actually really cool. I feel like computer science back then wasn't like a huge, computers weren't like a huge thing back then. Like, how did you kind of get introduced to that?
When I was a freshman at Brown, I literally got one of the first Macs. There wasn't even a hard drive. It had two 3.5-inch, 3.25-inch floppy drives.
Okay.
So you put the programs on one and the data on the other. I mean, I think it had 64K of RAM or something like that. So, but I think at the time, Brown had one of the top-ranked computer programs. We did a pretty cool tech, but we were coding in things like C++ and assembler and things like that. So again, I did do some software development for a few years after undergrad, but I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Do you feel like learning those skills early on really helped you develop like a bunch of entrepreneurial skills, especially as kind of technology developed and you had to, I feel like you might have been one of those first people that like really got in to computer science, like once again, really early. Do you feel like those skills really helped you along your entrepreneurial journey?
I was very I was very thoughtful about my career because my dad had been pretty successful. He had eventually lost control of his company, had gotten pushed out. And the reason that was the case, from my perspective at least, was he was really good at some things, but was bad at some things I think he thought he was good at. And so the reason I went back to business school is I wanted to know enough about every area of business, HR, operations, finance, accounting, marketing, you name it, so that no one could bullshit me about anything. So I just wanted to make sure I understood business well enough. And I think that while people have, to me, everyone fancies themselves an entrepreneur, or at least many people do, especially down here in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is most people don't have the risk tolerance for it. Like people think, oh, you're your own boss, and come in when you feel like it. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's it's not for the faint of heart. And so I always had that sort of more risk-seeking personality. Entrepreneurship doesn't scare me at all, but I think a lot of people it does. So for me, it was more about getting the experience, and the reality is, even going to a good MBA program like I did, you learn very little actually.
Yeah.
You learn by doing, and I actually think that in today's world, like if I were born today, I would have never gone to college. I would have never gone to business school. I learned very little practically even like my computer science degree. While I learned all these programming languages, when I actually got into the real world and I was coding with real business-oriented tools, the stuff you learn in college, it's very ivory tower. It's not practical. The people now, I would say probably 2/3 of the developers that I've hired in the last 5 years are people that didn't go to college. They're self-taught. And my experience is they tend to be better. So you can get a better education on YouTube today than Harvard for sure.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. I feel like a lot of people don't even realize that. And that's really cool that you even brought that up. And I like one of the things you said about like taking on risks, because especially when you're an entrepreneur, a lot of people want to become an entrepreneur, but they don't even know the risks that are associated with it. And when they try, they're not willing to take as big of risk, which kind of hinders their success, in my opinion. So like, I like one analogy I like is like people say like being an entrepreneur is like flying a plane, jumping off in no parachute and trying to build a plane on the way down. You know what I'm saying? Because you never know what's going to kind of happen. You're kind of just throwing yourself out there. And like you said, taking on a bunch of risk and stuff. Do you feel like, if you wouldn't have taken risks, you wouldn't be at like where you are right now?
100%. And it was harder to do back then. When I was graduating from business school, there's so much groupthink in business school you can't even imagine. It's like you go into finance or you go into consulting, and that's where everyone wants to get the jobs. Those have the highest salaries. And, so I decided I think I had 3 consulting job opportunities that I didn't take so I could do a startup. And so, there's a lot of, the perceived risk is super high. Like to me, the alternative was, well, then I'm just going to work in some big company for, a huge chunk of my career. And I knew I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing about it, though, is you have to figure out, and this was a learning experience for me, like there's a big difference between doing a pure startup where like literally there's only one employee and it's you, the founder.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different thing than like what I did, here at TopTier, where I would have called TopTier sort of like a late stage 1, early stage 2 company. They already have revenue. They already had customers. And so I think it's important when you're figuring out what you're going to do with your career to figure out where you work best. I can do the pure startup, but I hate it, and I'm not as good at it. I'm much better at a late stage 1, early stage 2, maybe to like early stage 3 at the most.
Yeah.
So it's a very different thing. Once you get over, say, 150, 200 million in revenue, it's a very different animal than when you're doing a pure startup.
So you'd say once you get those later numbers, that's where you feel like you're more comfortable stepping in and you're like, all right, guys, I know how to take this to the next level.
Like once you get to revenues of even like most of the businesses that I've done where I think I've made the biggest impact, they have somewhere between, $1 million and $50 million in revenue. And like, I know that's where I make the biggest impact. So it's important to figure out where your strengths are, because there's no problem being bad at things, but the kiss of death in business is thinking you're good at things you're bad at.
Yeah.
That will ruin whatever you're doing.
That's actually really good advice. I really like that because, like you said, especially if you're high up in a company and you expect yourself to be like, oh, I can do that. And if you don't execute in the best way, your business isn't going to do good, whatever it may be, isn't going to be done at the highest task. Because that's why you have to go hire people. A lot of people think they can develop these big companies alone, but there's really a lot can be said about hiring a team and getting things done along the way and stuff. Do you feel like since you've kind of stepped into TopTier, you guys have hired on more and kind of grown a little bit more? Or?
Yeah,
Really?
That's an understatement. Yeah, I want to say when I started, and I've only been here, like my 1-year anniversary is coming up here in a few days.
Oh, sweet.
I want to say when we started, if you counted all full-time equivalents, we had maybe 15 to 20 people. Now it's 50.
Oh, wow.
No, I'm actually more like 60. Sorry, more like 60 people. So quite a bit. And a lot of that is one of the things that's really interesting about the stage of the business you're in. When you're under 50 employees, your organization structure tends to be more around the skill set of the people on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Once you start getting over 50, which we've just crossed that relatively recently, you start to get a little bit more structured in terms of, I have a finance department and an accounting department and a marketing department and a little bit more structure. But when you're earlier and navigating that is something that's actually, for me, it's really fun and exciting. But I think that's where a lot of companies trip up, is in that transition from having a company that's really more trust-based, because it's a handful of people that you know really well. And then as you grow, you've got to create structures and processes that allow you to scale. And that's that can get a little tricky.
Yeah. Is this one of the biggest companies you've worked with now that you're up to 50 people?
No. So probably the biggest organization. I've never worked in big companies except when the companies I was running got purchased.
Mm.
So I was running a company called High Beam Research, and we got bought by Cengage. I think at the time they were the second biggest textbook publisher in the world. So I basically signed an agreement saying I would agree to stay for 3 years after the acquisition. So that was, there I had, probably a few thousand people in my area. But the biggest company I've run myself is probably around 500 people.
Oh, wow. That's pretty big. I kind of want to go over, how you kind of became a part of TopTier, because a lot of people, like I said, I've been seeing you recently. I've been loving your content. Like I said, when I started seeing you a lot more on the TopTier Trader Instagram and just online and stuff, I think it's been amazing. Like I said, getting to see the face behind, the CEO behind the prop firm, because once again, a lot of people, don't even get to see who that person is. So I kind of want to go over how you got the opportunity, how you kind of became a TopTier CEO, and, how you kind of got in the mix of Q, Anthony, Nick, all those guys.
Yeah. So I was the chief. So I've never worked in the same industry twice, with the exception of the 2 prior companies to TopTier. They were both crypto companies. I have a strong personal interest in crypto. And so the company I worked at before this was called Crypto5. They've since then changed their name to Investify. And they built into the banking and credit union infrastructure to allow people to buy, sell, and hold crypto. And now they're also doing other asset classes like stocks, ETFs, things like that. So, but and still, I'm a board advisor. I'm still good friends with the CEO. In fact, I jokingly say it's like breaking up with a woman I was still in love with. But it was a fully virtual company. And I don't love that. Like, don't get me wrong. There's probably about half our folks are remote, but half the folks are here in Miami. And it's just really hard to build a company culture fully remote. And so I wasn't looking, was given an opportunity. When a recruiter contacted me, I said, well, it's in Miami. My wife and I decided to settle in Miami. We were digital nomads for a while. I'm like, well, let me just, see what they have to say. Never hurts to, network and have conversations. And when I originally met Nick Castillo and Jamal Hollingsworth, and Jamal was really in my role before, but he was moving up to the parent company, AI Technologies. We're a subsidiary of them. And so they were looking for someone to take over Jamal's role and run the business. And when I met them, and then eventually Q and Anthony, what got me excited about it was I just had never met people with that much of an abundance mentality. The world I come from, venture capital backed, angel backed companies, it's always a scarcity mentality. Limited resources, limited employees, limited capital, limited customers. It's just a very limited mindset, and I'm usually the lone voice in the room that's the optimist, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm the one saying, "Hey guys, maybe we need to hit the brakes here a little bit," So, but it's really, they always say, and I think there's a lot of truth to it, that you're the sum total of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
Being around people with an abundance mentality is contagious, and it's way more exciting to run and build and scale a business when people are thinking about what's possible, not what's not possible.
Yeah, that top tier lifestyle. I feel like, a lot of people online, when I first became a trader, like looking up to people like you and Anthony, those are 2 people that, like, to me were like legends. You're like, you thought you could never go up there and touch those guys. So it's cool, like you said, to be able to come into an industry, go around people like that with that type of mindset, because I feel like that mindset is what got them to where they are. You know what I'm saying? And seeing what they've been able to build with Top Tier has been cool. And like I said, that top tier lifestyle, it's like people want to be a part of the brand because of what it kind of means also, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Do you feel like, I just want to ask, like, when in the prop firm space, when you were becoming a part of Top Tier, did you even know about funding or like prop firm capital or like funding traders at all?
So when I started the interview process and I was trying to do some research on Top Tier before my first meetings, I was just so surprised I'd never even heard of the space. Like I really took me a minute to wrap my head around the business model. I'm like, how does this work? So they're not trading with real money, but they kind of are, but they're really not, but they get paid out in real money. But then once I wrapped my mind around it, I was like, this is actually really cool. And I think what's really exciting. So when I was in the crypto space, in fact, not the company before Crypto5, but before that I worked at a crypto ATM company. They were the second biggest in the world. I think they still are. And, they talk about, oh, we're helping the underbanked and the unbanked and the less privileged get, access to crypto and blah, blah, blah. That's more BS than reality.
Yeah.
But what I really like about this business is we really are giving access to, basically virtual capital, but effectively works the same, to people who otherwise would have no opportunity.
Yeah.
And not only that, but Q and Anthony's origin story, is our origin story. Like, there's no better, examples of that than those 2 guys. Yeah. In fact, that was one of the 2 things that persuaded me to come on to leave Crypto5 and to come on to Top Tier. One was the abundance mentality, but the other one was I was so surprised by how humble both Q and Anthony were. As successful as they are, they don't forget where they came from, their humble beginnings, and that's really hard. Like, it's funny, we have 4 core values internally and externally, 4 each. But the internal ones we use to hire and promote, and our top core value is humility. And the reason humility is so important to me, like, I literally will not hire someone that doesn't have a reasonable level of humility, because if you're not humble, then you're not open to being wrong, and you become emotionally invested in bad decisions. And we all make bad decisions, myself included. Part of the reason I think I make fairly good judgments now is because I've made a lot of bad judgments earlier in my career. But I'm always open to being wrong. And I joke that I always have strong opinions loosely held. I'm very easy to persuade I'm wrong. Just show me the premise I have that's wrong, the data I'm not looking at right, and I'll change my opinion just like that. And that's what I look for in my team, is people that have strong positions loosely held, that can change their mind when they're presented with new evidence. And that's harder to find than you might think.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like I said, it's cool to hear someone at your level kind of talk about key characteristics and stuff that someone needs to have if they want to kind of not only come work for Top Tier, but even just being a stand-up person. You know, does he have to do with trading or anything? It's just like that kind of, like you said, having that humility, I think applies to like if you just being a good person in all aspects and just being in life. You know what I'm saying? Like kind of going back to, you know, you're saying about in college, how you did get all these degrees, but you felt like a lot of the, you know, things you used were from real life experiences and having to gauge. I'm trying to think how to say it, like you have to have outside skill sets like humility and being, you know, noble and like a good speaker and all these type of things to elevate in business in all aspects. People aren't going to want to work with you if you're not like a stand-up guy. Doesn't matter how smart you are or what degrees you got and stuff. So it's kind of cool, like I said, to hear from that. I want to ask just maybe someone out there who wants to maybe he's in the Miami area or even just in the United States or even out of the United States that like would want to maybe come and either work for a company like Top Tier or Top Tier in general and stuff. Like beyond humility, what are some key characteristics you look for that you would like give advice to someone out there, like work on these? And I feel like you would really elevate in business.
So I think I have a fairly contrarian view about this, although I did just see an interview with Elon Musk the other day. It might not have been from the other day, but the clip I saw was from a few days ago, and it really hit me because I have the same point of view, which is someone was asking him the biggest mistake he'd made, and he said, well, the biggest mistake I've made, and unfortunately I've made it repetitively, and I'm not even sure I won't make it again, is that sometimes I'll hire purely based on talent, and that's a mistake that's hard not to make. I've made it myself plenty of times too. The reality is, you know, someone's heart, their intentions, their integrity is at least as important. Mm-hmm. Give me someone with a little bit less ability, 20, 30% less ability, but they're ride or die. They're, you know, a person of honesty and integrity. I'll take that person all day long because that person is going to stand the test of time. And, you know, it's like, you know, you always hear these things, small incremental improvements, you know, compounded, you know, add up really fast.
Yeah.
And the reality is people that are, you know, in some weird ways, talent can be a curse because it makes people lazy because they're so good innately. That person who's got to work at it a little bit, I think not always. You'll have an outlier like an Elon Musk or someone like that. But, you know, that person who's just absolutely tenacious, you know, the David Goggins of the world.
Yeah.
Those are the people I think that make the bigger impact generally. Mm-hmm. Because you can't get over it. There's no substitute for compounded improvement.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That's actually such a good advice, especially from like an interview like Elon Musk and stuff. I kind of want to go over like, you know, what kind of came to mind when you're talking about that is like trying to get that next level. You have to come out of your comfort zone. You have to take risks, all this type of stuff. I liked kind of earlier, you said that you were a digital nomad. And I feel like one of the big things about me that changed my mind is when I went to Europe for a couple months and kind of did that life. Do you think that getting out of your comfort zone and going and experiencing new things is really important in life?
I think the more inputs you can take in, you know, so that it's so easy to, you know, I think back to my life. So I'm 58 years old now. Mm-hmm. And I could tell you when I was 20, I look back to when I was 15 and be like, oh man, I was such an idiot when I was 15, but now I know what's going on. Then at 25, I look back to 20. Oh man, I was such an idiot at 20. Now at 25. So I know at 58, I'm going to, you know, when I'm 68, I'm going to look back at 58 and what an idiot I was. What was I thinking? So, you know, to me, I think the having new experiences, you know, as many as you can possibly stack up. In fact, one of the guys who I follow a lot, I probably watch 25 to 30 hours of his content a month because I think he's so useful, is this guy, Scott Adams. He was the original creator of Dilbert, but he's written a bunch of other books. And he talks about processes over goals, and he talks about how to build up your talent stack. And ultimately, so, you know, his example is he's not that great of an artist. Yeah, he's funny, but he's not that funny. Ultimately, he has probably one of the 2 or 3 most successful cartoons in the history of cartoons. And he's like, his talent stack is what made him unusual because he's not the greatest artist, but he's good enough. And his stack of abilities is what made him really successful. I think that's true in life. And I think it's definitely true in business. Actually, and it's true even in relationships.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, part of it too is not just thinking about the outcome. It's kind of the process, you know, the systems versus goals thing. Mm-hmm. But it's how do you want to travel through life? You were talking about, you know, just being a decent person, right? My wife gives me a hard time sometimes because I do help people a lot of times, and many of them are people that cannot do anything for me. It's like, why do you do that? I'm like, that's how I want to travel through life. small caveat, just my background. So when I was 24, so a long time ago, actually, when I was 24, I was told I had 6 months to live, that I was dying of cancer and I had 6 months to live. And so for about a month, I genuinely thought I would be dead in 6 months, which clearly was not my plan. And I remember when, I'd gotten the third diagnosis telling me it was pretty much game over, that I swore that to myself. I said, if by some miracle I survive, whenever possible, I'm going to try to touch people's life in a positive way. And as weird as it's going to sound, maybe other than my daughter being born, that misdiagnosis is the best thing that ever happened to me, because I faced mortality, but then once it was over, I had my whole life ahead of me to live a different way. Most people, they face their mortality, they're in their 70s, their 80s.
Yeah.
It's too late. For me, I faced it at 24, and it just changed the orbit of my life.
Just the mindset, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's actually crazy. I appreciate you. That's a powerful story to kind of share. Is like, when you have your back against the wall and you're told that you have 6 months to live, you know what I'm saying? You get past it. You want, like you said, it's the best thing that happened to you, because it gave you that life that you're like, all right, now I really appreciate life and what I have, you know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you kind of going over that. Being like the CEO of TopTier and stuff, like, what's kind of the daily life or day in the life that you guys kind of have going on here at the TopTier office and stuff?
Well, it was funny. When I was leaving the crypto industry, going into the prop industry,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was leaving something that was really volatile to something more stable.
Yeah.
Well,
Not
I
at
couldn't
all.
have been more wrong about that.
Yeah.
You made the crypto space look stable.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even feel like I have a job,
Mm-hmm.
because I love the team. I mean, the team and the culture we've built, I think, is really special. I have people on my team that said they would never work for a company, and not only do they work for a company now, but they love it. And I think that's about creating the right culture, and building the right team, firing fast when you make a bad hire. And I made 2 or 3 since I've been here. Fire really quickly. You're not doing people any favors by keeping the person who's the wrong cultural fit in the business. But at the end of the day, there is no normal day. Normal day. Every day is different. I remember the first day that I started. I remember it was June 20th last year. We had just lost MetaQuotes. So my very first day, none of our customers can trade. It's like, welcome as CEO.
Yeah, wow.
We're losing all of our customers today.
That is crazy.
So that was day number 1. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster, but our parent company is super supportive. We're well capitalized. We have a great team. The business is doing really well, but there's no regular day. Every day is a little bit different. Super exciting though. I mean, I am never bored. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I think again, everyone at some point thinks, oh, if I'm an entrepreneur or if I'm president or CEO of a company, you do what you want. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Even no matter how much autonomy you have, you're beholden to someone, a board of directors, your customers, your affiliates. You have so many people, your employees. The responsibilities, it can feel a little intense at times.
Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. What a way to kind of become CEO. I feel like the meta quotes thing was one of the biggest things that kind of happened and hindered a lot of prop firms. So what a way to kind of come in the industry and get that. One thing that's kind of cool is I feel like TopTier was these first people. I remember when that first kind of came down and TopTier lost their meta quotes license. Anthony and Q had come out with a video explaining like what kind of had happened, and gave a solution, which was Trade Locker. And I feel like they get to kind of like look back and say, aha, because they called it early before all these other prop firms ended up getting their MetaQuote license taken. And I actually really enjoy Trade Locker because I feel like they had time to actually develop and actually fix bugs and get things right, where once again, they basically were preparing for what kind of happened. And I feel like you guys were kind of the first to like be like, I know this happened, but guys, I'm telling you, this is coming, and this is a way to kind of get away from it. And I think Trade Locker is a beautiful kind of substitute. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, that's a crazy way to kind of.
Well, not only that, but I would argue that MetaQuotes is sort of like Windows 3.1, and Trade Locker is like a Mac.
Yeah, exactly. It's just upgrade.
And look, at the end of the day, I think the other thing I think that Q and Anthony have done and continue to do, and we're trying to carry the torch there, is you got to be transparent about things.
Yeah.
Tell people what's going on. Most people will stick with you if you're honest with them. If you if you're clear about what's going on. It's when you're and I think that comes from experience, right? I think that part of the challenge, and one of the things I give Q and Anthony a lot of credit for is, in fact, Q said this once on one of the one of the what do you call those? One of the live streams that we were doing.
Yeah.
Can't remember if it was Instagram or on X, but basically it's like, hey, we're good at getting the plane off the ground, but we need someone to help us get to altitude, right? And so they saw that, hey, look, let's bring in someone that has a little bit more experience scaling businesses. The business was already a strong business when I got here. And really for me, again, it's like the right person at the right time. I probably couldn't have done as good a job as they did getting it off the ground. And I know that I'm really good at getting altitude.
Yeah. No, great. I mean, you were a great addition. Everyone I've talked to has said how great you've done of stepping in and stuff. When I came and got to play golf with you guys, and well, first off, just the environment, like you said, the chemistry and everything your team has is pretty amazing. Like just getting to come and play golf with you guys and seeing how you interact, and it's just a fun time. Like you said, like people who said they never worked for a job are now working for a company, but they're enjoying it because I don't want to like put words in their mouth or anything, but it's like they're having so much fun. Does it feel like a job? You know what I'm saying? Like they love being a part of the culture, which like you hear, if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life. So it's been cool, especially because a lot of the people you have are like my age that I've known from before that like work for TopTier and stuff, and they say how much they enjoy it. So it's been really cool. Like how important is having that kind of company culture around being, you know, kind of more fun and like still obviously getting stuff done, but like really making sure like, it's like that family aspect of all being together.
I think that it's critical. And I don't think it's a nice to have. It's nearly a has to have. I mean, there are occasionally companies that just through some innovation, they have some sort of unbelievable competitive advantage. But I think your culture can be one of the biggest competitive advantages that you have. And really what that comes down to, at least my philosophy is, it has to be the individual first. So every person that works for me, it's important to me, and this gets pushed all the way down through the organization. It's really important to me to understand what their career aspirations are. Like, hey, this is what you have. This is what your job responsibilities are now. But tell me where you want to be in 2, 3, 5 years. Mm-hmm. No better place to grow a career than in an early stage company that's high growth. Because ultimately, you always want to hire from, promote from within when you can, if the people are capable. And so, knowing that and really following through on it. Paying for people to get additional education and certification when it makes sense for them to do that, or there are things that they're interested in. If you really think about the person first, one, it's just a nicer way to travel through life.
Yeah.
But the reality is, even if you're just a selfish prick, it's still a better outcome.
Yeah.
So it's like the best regardless of whether it's you're doing it for, good purposes or bad purposes. Focus on the individual. Make sure that they're getting their needs met. And if you do that, they'll kill for you.
Yeah. No, completely. That's awesome. It's great advice for anyone out there who's trying to start a company or just, once again, hiring a team. Because like we kind of talked about earlier, I think it is important to have people around you to help, get it to altitude. You know what I'm saying?
The other thing I'd say that's really critical from a cultural standpoint is, people always say, oh, I have an open door policy. You can come to me with anything. Mm-hmm. It's often bullshit, right? And again, you could say whatever you want. It's about, do you walk the talk and, do you follow through? And, to me, whenever people say, oh, I've got good news and bad news, always give me the bad news first, right? And I have no issue with bring me bad news and bring me whatever, even if it's half-baked, whatever your ideas are for how to solve the problem. Don't just bring me a problem, bring me a solution, even if it's not fully formed.
Yeah.
And I think that when you train people to think that way and they really are comfortable coming to you with anything, I mean, I joke about it. So I have a 24-year-old daughter, and the reality is my team is very young. I've got, a good chunk of people on my team that are within, 3 or 4 years of age of my daughter. Mm-hmm. And the reality is the way you manage, the way you, manage and lead an organization and the way you parent, I think they're almost identical. Mm-hmm. The techniques are slightly different, but the underlying principles are the same, which is you have to make it safe for them to come to you with anything. I know way too much about my daughter's life.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I want it to be that way so that I can be helpful and she's not afraid to come to me with anything. And I really worked hard in the organization to make sure that people know for a fact they can really come to me with anything. And I'm not looking for scapegoats. I'm not looking for who to blame. I'm looking for how to solve the problem. And then once we solve the problem, then let's figure out, hey, let's do a postmortem. How can we avoid this happening in the future? But no one's afraid to come to me with anything. And that really helps a lot.
Yeah, feeling comfortable, like you said. And I really like that idea of having to go, not only bring you a problem, but give me some sort of solution. It doesn't have to be the right solution, but give me something of like, when you first heard of the problem, what is the first thing that came to mind of how to fix it? You know what I'm saying? It gives them like that workaround where it's not they're just looking for you to come up with the answer. It's actually like, giving them that brain function of like, all right, how can I solve this? And then once again, the teams come together, brains come together, and then they get the problem solved. So that's great advice.
And you want to teach people to be problem solvers, and now it's that old adage, teach them to fish instead of feeding them.
Yeah.
You want to give people the autonomy to make decisions, and then teach them that it's totally fine to make mistakes, but adjust quickly, make mistakes quick, and fix them quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Going off the analogy you just said, like, teach a man or give a man a fish, he eats for one day, teach a man how to catch a fish to leave for life. Like, what are some advice to people who, want to become an entrepreneur or maybe get to the level you're at? Like, just, what I'm saying? Like, you could give them, you can give someone money, but you can't give them the knowledge to get and be a CEO, have business skills, like all that type of stuff. Like, what are some of the main characteristics you think it really takes to get to a CEO level?
Well, first of all, I think you have to decide and really think through whether it's something you really want. Like I said, I think a lot of people think, oh, I'll be my own boss, whatever. There's some of that, but it's a lot different than you think.
Yeah.
So first, it's trying to really be honest with yourself about whether you have the right disposition for that. I think the best way to figure that out, and I would say this is true in any career choice, whether it's to be CEO of a company or something else, is spend some time doing what I call an informational interview. Like, I taught my daughter to do this. This is how she got her first job out of college. It's how she's now doing a career change, and how she's thinking that through. Find people, like, let's say that, my daughter's interested in marketing. So let's say that she wants to be a chief marketing officer, 10 years into the future. Mm-hmm. Find people 3, 5, 8, 10, 15 years further in their career than you are, doing the thing you think you want to do. Ask them, contact them on LinkedIn or however you find them, and say, hey, can I take you to coffee? Can I buy you lunch? Can I, buy you dinner? And just say, I just want to pick your brains. You're where I think I want to be in 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. You'll get an 80% hit rate. Mm-hmm. When my daughter was doing this when she was in college, she's like, Dad, because I told her, here are 50 companies in the Denver area, that's where she lives, that are in industries I think you'd be interested in. Contact only the C-level executives in the organization and ask them if you can take them to coffee or whatever. And she's like, Dad, they're never going to respond to me. 80% of the people did. She got 2 job offers in 4 informational interviews. And I said, the one thing that's key is when you do them, don't ask for a job.
Yeah.
Just ask for advice, information, insights, what podcasts they listen to, what books they might recommend, things like that. And they'll come to you. The reality is everyone's had someone help them early in their career. That's part of why I try to pay it forward too. Mm-hmm. People were helpful to me in my career when I was younger. I want to be as helpful to other people as I can be. Most people are wired that way.
Yeah.
And so ask for advice from the people that are a little bit further in their career than you are, and you'll come pretty fast to whether you think that's the right fit for you.
Yeah, that's great advice. I really like that. Just giving the advice of like, so many people would give so many excuses. I'm saying, if you went and told someone like, oh, go reach out to 50 like head CEOs and invite them to go get coffee, I bet like 99% of people would have a similar response to how your daughter was, about like, none of them are going to respond. But guys, this is coming from a CEO telling you that, like, like if someone hit you up and wanted to pick your brain, like, you'd be willing to go sit down and get lunch with them. It's not like someone smaller telling you this. No, this is coming straight from the source. You know what I'm saying? So
people are flattered. Who's not flattered to be asked for their advice? And my daughter every other day was hitting me up, Dad, another chief marketing officer agreed to have coffee with me. This, this person agreed to, and she couldn't believe it. And I was like, look, like I said, people want to be helpful if you let them be. People are afraid to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I do it now all the time.
Yeah.
I ask other people for help. People ask me for help. And again, it's just a funner way to travel through life, is being useful.
Yeah. And you got to be proactive and like take that shot. You know what I'm saying? Because the worst thing they do is say no. You know what I'm saying? Is someone could just say like, oh, I'm busy, or I can't do that. Like, I'm not interested. But you might, you're not going to know unless you send that message. So I actually really like that. It's really good advice. I kind of want to go over maybe like some future things. It might be a hard question, but what are some of the future things you guys have coming for TopTiers? If there's anything you can share.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious.
So, it's funny. People are always worried about competitors copying them and all of that. I never worry about that. And the reason I don't, and it's actually particularly interesting in this industry, which I'll come to in a second, but the reality is you're either going to be a firm that's innovative. I say firm, any company. Yeah. You're either going to be innovative or you're not. And if you're innovative and you continually innovate, the companies that are copying, like they're, most companies won't change their business model because you did, because then they'd have to admit that you're smarter than them. And most people aren't able to do that, right? And secondly, even if they do, they're not the ones innovating, they're copying, right? It's why Microsoft never has any good products. They've never innovated. Apple innovates all the time, right? And that's why people are much more, the loyalty, like who feels like super loyal? Who owns a Microsoft Zune, their MP3 player, like 3 people, right? Everyone owned an iPod.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're an innovative company, you don't got to worry about competition. But to your direct question, the one thing that's on our roadmap that I'm most excited about is TopTier Academy. So there really isn't. So we're basically going to do our TopTier Academy is going to be entirely free. It's going to take a person who can't even spell PIP and take them all the way to how to be a Forex prop trader, and including trading strategy. In fact, anyone who graduates from TopTier Academy, because there's quizzes at the end of each of those sections, if you pass, you'll get a free 5K challenge, on us. Because we're trying to, and again, we're not altruistic, right? The reason we did this, a little bit altruistic, but the main reason we did it was we want to create our own customers, right? And the best way to do that, and we did a bunch of focus groups early when I started, because I wanted to get feedback from the community about, what really moved the needle for them. And almost everyone that comes into the industry comes through some sort of mentor or influencer, or whatever it might be. And they said, if you train us, if you educate us, then we'll be loyal for life. And so that's when the kernel of the idea of TopTier Academy came up. We're even going to do like a Gran Turismo. I don't know if you saw the movie Gran Turismo, where they took these gamers and they basically tried to make them professional race car drivers. We're going to do a mildly similar version to that. We're going to basically bring people in for a 1-week kind of boot camp and see if we can't get them to a payout. So take people that have never, so in some cases, never traded before. In other cases, maybe they've traded but never gotten to a payout. So if they've gotten a payout, you can't participate, right? And see how many we can get to a payout, taking them through TopTier Academy. So, but really what that is, it's part of a kind of a broader strategy where we want to have what I call sort of a cradle to grave solution for our customers. So we're going to have TopTier Academy for the people that can't even spell PIP. We're going to be introducing a product, kind of like gamification of trading, a product called Levels that we have, that we're the only company that will have this product that allows you to basically, place trades in a way that's only PIP oriented, and you're not dealing with the monetary aspect, to help with the psychology and really help people pick their entry and exit points more intelligently and take some of the emotion out of it. So we're going to have that. Obviously, we've got a regular TopTier product. And then another thing that I'll announce that we're going to be launching is we're going to offer a TopTier Pro, where we A-book all of our customers.
Wow.
So that'll be coming in here in the next couple of months. So the idea is that, people are always saying, prop firms, they only make money when traders lose.
Yeah.
I think that's a bunch of BS. The reality is, and this will be even more true now, because we'll basically be able to take people that are doing regular prop challenges now, and some of those people can graduate to TopTier Pro. So we'll basically have people all the way from just starting out to to A-booking those and to A-booking those folks. And when they feel like they're ready and they want to trade with a regular brokerage account with their own capital, they'll be ready.
Yeah.
Well, that's our job. Our job is to get them ready to trade with their own real capital.
That's revolutionary. I think that's such a good thing to implement to the community. You know what I'm saying? Not even just for TopTier. Like, it's just so crazy out there there's so much information on YouTube, but then having a free source that, like you said, teaches you from spelling PIP and then gives you an order, like a course on how to become a profitable trader, getting those payouts and stuff. So one of the questions I actually was going to ask, but you answered it, was, would you be scared about, because, a lot of people are familiar now with the simulated accounts. And I had the question about, would you be scared of training all these people, making them all these profitable traders, and then giving them accounts and having them actually going and getting huge payouts? But then you answered it saying that, you're looking to start A-booking everyone and stuff. So that is the perfect way to implement, all right, we're trying to create the best traders possible to then use our platform and actually change their lives. 'Cause at the end of the day, it's not just helping you. Like you said, your whole goal and what you really liked about it is helping the person without the capital, with the lack of capital, get capital and actually change their lives. Because there are people out there that are really smart, are really good traders, but they just had the lack of capital. They really takes them a lot longer on their journey to get there. So, that's really cool. I'm really glad that you shared that. Everyone coming soon. TopTier Academy. That's super cool. Revolutionary for the whole
TopTier Academy and
space.
TopTier Pro.
TopTier Pro. Wow. That's super cool. You know, we're gonna wrap up kind of soon, but I want to ask you, like, what is your favorite and least favorite things about the industry now that you've been a part of it?
My favorite thing about the industry is that we really are, you know, we really do have the mission of trying to help people and
Hmm.
provide them. Like, I practically begged my daughter not to go to college because I knew what she was going to do. She was going to get a degree in psychology and a minor in business like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And, what are you going to do with that? Now, she got a job and that's all fine. But at the end of the day, you can get, like I said, you can get so much of a better education on YouTube and a million other places online. Um, that that I guess the part that I like the most is that I think we really are helping people. And and some people, they're going to be like a Q Anthony and they're buying Lambos and, houses and stuff like that. But there are a lot of people that are getting 3, 5,000, 8,000, 10,000 a month, and we're paying their rent, their mortgage. We're helping them send their kid to private school, whatever it might be, pay off debts, being able to make people's lives better. One of the things that we're doing is we're starting to target groups where we think there's a real predisposition for looking for an alternative career path. And so people that are ex-military, people that are ex-law enforcement, ex-rideshare drivers, ex-food delivery people, these are people that super hardworking, especially people that were in the military, very disciplined people. One of the guys who's helping us with TopTier Academy, Sean Banks, great guy, ex-military, ex-law enforcement, food delivery, ex-Uber guy. The way his story is amazing. He basically was dropping some 19-year-old kid off at a BMW dealership to get his car. He's like, what the heck do you do that you're buying a new car? He's a trader. And he became a mentor to him. Now Sean has his own education program and so forth. So,
That's crazy.
really trying to target this group. So that's what I like the most is I think we really can make a difference. In fact, we're also going to be doing a high school outreach program. We're going to send people to speak at high schools and try to, educate people about the space and that this is an alternative career pathway. What I like the least, and this won't probably be too much of a surprise, is there's a lot of flash and bullshit out there, and it doesn't mean that because there's flash, it's bullshit. Q and Anthony are very flashy guys.
Yeah.
More power to them. It's not about that. It's that in some cases that's all there is.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are big influencers that are not traders.
Yep.
They say they are, but they're not. They're using marketing accounts. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
And people can't tell the difference. And I feel like there are a lot of people that get sucked in. And obviously, all the firms that have gone under. I think I saw the complete list the other day. It was like 100 firms or something in the last year have gone under, and obviously some of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
They've either gone under or like FTMO pulled out of the U.S. So that part of the business I don't like. What I think is going to happen though is things tend to autocorrect, self-correct themselves, and I think our industry is doing that. I think regulations are probably going to be coming, and I think that ultimately that will probably be a good thing because it'll create a barrier to entry so that not just anyone can launch a prop firm.
Yeah.
Over the weekend with no capital invested. They've got, they're profitable almost immediately. And so, of course, that's going to attract people that are opportunistic.
Yeah.
And so I think by having a higher cost of entry, by having some regulation, probably will help the industry.
Yeah. You don't want to attract like the wrong people that'll have the wrong idea on what to do. Because like you said, there's people out there that can go start a prop firm over the weekend, not well capitalized, and then just kind of get it moving and not have the right intentions for the trader. Where as a company like TopTier, you guys not only have the right intentions of trying to fund less capitalized people, but then also implementing high school outreach stuff, academies, all type of stuff to really help the individual trader. So I'm really excited to see what you guys have coming. Like I said, I just am super excited to see the way the industry is kind of moving, especially with kind of already the regulations that have kind of happened already. That's been really minuscule. I do think that as more kind of comes in, it'll kind of ease a lot of stuff out and weed out all the BS that people kind of get caught in on their way to trying to find a company like TopTier and stuff. So
yeah, I think that it goes back to the whole leadership and parenting and coaching, whatever, that, doing the right thing ultimately is the best long-term strategy. Being the people that are doing it right, that are genuinely, it comes down to aligning incentives, right? Be honest and transparent, align people's incentives. People will behave based on how they're incentivized. It's very simple, whether it's an employee or your kid that you're trying to parent or you're a high school coach, whatever, coaching a team or whatever it might be, you just got to align incentives and make sure that, but in order to do that, you need to understand what's important to people.
Yeah.
And so whether it's your customer and understanding what's important to them, and in my example, what they made really clear was us educating them was really important.
Yep.
So, okay, let's make sure we educate people.
That's awesome. I want to ask you one last question. As someone who's behind the scenes of a prop firm CEO, you see all the ins and outs of why people are profitable, why people aren't profitable, kind of the biggest things that hinder their growth. What are some of the biggest advice you could give to traders to become successful in the prop firm industry?
So I think it starts with what I was saying before about doing those informational interviews, which again would be so easy to do in this space because there are a lot of people, it's really easy to find people on Instagram and on Twitter and so forth, people that are successful traders. And, so networking and talking to those people and understanding, really get clear for yourself that this is what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that and you've committed, because the reality is you do not need to be a brain surgeon to be a successful trader.
Yep.
Yeah, being smart and great with numbers doesn't hurt, right? But I've seen plenty of people that are very successful traders that I would say have relatively average intelligence, but they're super disciplined.
Yep.
So it's not like most things, whether you want to learn to play the piano or play, golf or become a successful trader, you're not going to become a successful trader overnight. And if that's your expectation going in, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
And people will say, you're making money on the backs of the failed traders. And that's why I say, the reality is the business model just for the prop firms, forget about when you're A-booking everyone.
Yeah.
The business model takes care of itself because the majority of people aren't disciplined.
Yep.
And so that's really what it comes down to is oftentimes slow and steady wins the race. Slow is fast, but you got to do slow for a while.
Yeah.
And stick with it, continue to learn. I mean, the people I know that are successful traders, like when I talk to Q and Anthony, that's all they talk about. And they've been successful traders for a long time, and they're consuming, new stuff all the time. They're constantly learning. So, having that mindset of being a lifelong learner is absolutely critical. But I would say, again, first step, make sure it's what you want to do. And then once you've decided, not I think I want to do it, but I've decided I'm going to do it, you just got to stick with it for a while.
Yeah. It goes back to what we were talking about kind of earlier, and you saying how one of the reasons you feel like you started doing things right in life and in business and stuff is because you did make a lot of bad decisions, and that's what helped you make the right decisions. Same thing with trading is I feel like a lot of people do a lot of bad stuff, make bad trades, make mistakes, but they don't really learn from them. So I think that is a big thing a lot of people out there need to do is apply that to also trading and being disciplined, is that take time to journal and, write down what are you doing wrong. And eventually all those things you can weed out to then start doing the right things. And at the end of the day, it takes time. Like you said, slow and steady wins the race. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, it's important. I think everyone out there.
Basic things like you were saying, journaling, back testing,
Mm-hmm.
it's you've got to put in the work. If you think you're going to be successful and not put in the work, you're kidding yourself. And that's not true. It's just trading. It's true in anything. It's true in life. It's, you take a person who can't even do one push-up, and that person a year, if they every single day, I know this guy, Jesse Eitzler, he was the founder of, I think it was NetJet, one of the jet sharing companies. He's married to the CEO of Spanx.
Oh, nice.
But anyway, he was famously wrote a book called Living with a SEAL, where David Goggins lived with him for a month and beat the shit out of him for a month.
Wow.
But anyway, you take someone and he said if you spend 18 minutes a day for 1 year, okay, 18 minutes a day for 1 year doing, it doesn't matter what the thing is, you will be in the top 5% of the people on the planet of whatever that thing is. Okay, 18 minutes a day. Nobody doesn't have 18 minutes a day.
Yeah.
But most people don't have the discipline to invest even 18 minutes a day.
Yeah. That is crazy. That is such good advice, guys. Everyone out there, go put your 18 minutes in. Whatever it is you want to do, go put your 18 minutes a day, and in 1 year you will be in the top 5% of whatever that is. I think we're gonna wrap it up in a second, but is there any last advice you want to give to anyone out there that is, like I said, not only wants to become a successful trader, but just a successful person, entrepreneurial or entrepreneur, anything?
It keeps coming back to part of it is you can look at people. There definitely are people that are successful that are jerks.
Yeah.
There are plenty of them. And what I find interesting is there are less successful people that are nice.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's a lot more fun if you travel through. So, again, I think that sometimes you can get there a little faster being an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
but you're not going to enjoy the journey as much, and you're not going to enjoy the destination as much. And I don't think you stay there as long.
Yeah.
And when you travel through life trying to be as helpful to, I had a grandmother that passed away, you know, a few years ago. She had 3 master's degrees, and she was born in like 1918 or something like that. So really unusual. But the thing I loved about her the most was I never heard her say a negative word about anybody ever in her entire life. And she left everybody she touched a little bit better off. And I just figure if that's how you travel through life, it's going to work out pretty well for you.
Yeah. That's the environment I feel when I come to Top Tier and hang around with all of you guys. You know what I'm saying? Is just the welcoming and stuff. So yeah, really good company, guys. It's been such a pleasure sitting down with you, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and talk. I feel like a lot of people out there are going to really like this interview. You gave a bunch of gems, a bunch of advice, and you know, everyone, big things coming to Top Tier, so stay tuned. Guys, we're going to wrap up the No Limit podcast. Dave Guttman, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Luca, thanks.
Thank you. Pleasure. Woo.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
That was a great combo. Oh.